Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Fantasy Football University, FFU, coming at you yet again in the off season. Ladies and gentlemen, we are so happy to be with you. I'm Mr. Bill DeCousas. I'm here with Ruslan Lang. Mr. Lang, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, doing good. Not a lot of news this week outside of the GM of the Seahawks completely disrespecting Kenneth Walker on the stage. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. No, I mean, I think that's a topic in itself for a little new opportunity news to talk about before we get into the final round of wide receivers.
Yeah, absolutely. We the main thrust of the show today is wide receivers 25 through 36, and then of course some honorable, dishonorable sort of mentions. But yeah, like just touching upon some of the more recent news. Yeah, I thought that was ridiculous. But do you think that's all just a play of how it has to do with that they're thinking of not paying him and then therefore letting him walk? Like it's got
Well,
to be related to that,
I mean, yeah, they want a franchise tag a guy. He's a running back.
right?
He's not going to get a 5-year deal, which he's seeking. And yeah, I mean he had a fantastic whatchamacallit, Super Bowl, you know, run, and that was pretty much it. I mean, he was okay through the season. He's a 50-50 back. So, one game doesn't decide a 5-year contract. Yes, you won a Super Bowl and you were the MVP, but it is a team sport. That defense held a lot of teams in check.
Yes.
The big thing is, with the thing I have a problem with is, especially kind of piggybacking off of the Buffalo situation with Keenan Coleman and the owner and all that stuff. And then you see the owner, sorry, you see the GM on the stage, basically, it was a GM, right?
Management
Yeah.
throwing,
Just,
players under the bus, man. Yeah.
basically Kenneth Walker standing three guys away from him. And he's like, yeah. And we got Kenneth Walker, everybody. And then like everybody cheers and he goes, yeah, he just weirdly comes up to me and tries to negotiate a contract. And like you see Kenneth Walker just like whatever, but there's that's just crazy. Like if a GM talks like that in public about players, how do you feel? How do you think he talks behind closed doors? And that's like, it is what it is behind closed doors, but like if that's how he's going to treat a player that helped them win a Super Bowl in public in an event at a celebration, like that's weird in itself.
Oh, you're right. It's ridiculous. It's fortuitous because it came out also this week that it's looking like the Jets are going to be franchise tagging Brees Hall too. So the top two running back free agents that would have been on the market look like they're going to be both franchise tag Brees Hall and Ken Walker. So it creates more opportunity for, let's say, the kind of secondary backs to kind of go at it, and or for teams that are going to be drafting. We thought the best destinations for running back anyway was, we said Kansas City, New Orleans, and we said Washington potentially. But you
Well,
know,
speaking
I
of
don't know
yeah,
how
but
that affects the situation now.
speaking of Kansas City, I mean, now that Tyreek Hill is no longer a Miami Dolphin
That's
and gets
true.
released, maybe they don't need a wide receiver. Maybe they just need to plug Tyreek Hill back in there and go for another Super Bowl run.
That's true. We're going to talk about Tyreek Hill a little bit today, amazingly.
Yeah.
um,
Mike Evans is going to test the free agent market.
yes, and like, but I feel like the I feel like the I feel like the candle is ended
It's
with Mike
it
Evans
has
now.
it
The
has
flame is
ended.
burnt out.
It has ended. But this could be a nice kind of wide receiver that maybe Josh Allen needs in Buffalo. Um,
We say that about everybody. I
with
mean,
maybe a sprinkle here and there with other players. Unfortunately, Robert Woods decides that he's retiring. He's 84 years old now, so it was surprising to me seeing that this afternoon, this evening.
yeah, it was a weird week with like just kind of random football announcements here or there. It just goes to show like we love football so much that we'll create stuff to be talked about, like especially in the media here and there. And like they'll get on these talk shows and they'll start dissecting a player's tweets or whatever. By the way, as soon as Tyreek Hill was released, you had like everybody on multiple teams being like trying to tell, via social media, telling their GMs to go campaign to go get themselves Tyreek Hill. Don't know if it's going to happen. We'll see. Do you think Tyreek Hill has passed the expiration date himself?
Just depends on how his body heals. I mean, his knee was on the other side of his body, so
Well,
hopefully
and
he's
his
healing fine.
entire identity is being the fastest man on the planet. So I mean, and
Uh,
and also a great route runner, even at his speed, which is something Xavier Worthy cannot say. So,
yeah.
you
Well,
know,
I mean, he was the fastest man on the planet when before he got hurt. Now, who knows if that's going to be the same scenario?
we'll see. And for
Injuries do take step backs, especially when you're an aging wide receiver. Not saying that he's not going to be competitive, and a dominant factor in a good situation, but he has to be in a good situation. I think the only place that would be a positive situation for him is going back to Kansas City. I mean, they know how to use him,
yes,
and he has the camaraderie with the team, and obviously Travis Kelsey is you know doing movies now and marrying a billionaire. So
he needs to just retire. And by the way, there was like somebody had commented about that. So here's the deal. Tommy and I can have and we might even have a controversial thing. Travis Kelsey himself is a controversial figure with the Taylor Swift thing, the COVID commercial thing, on top of being on the Chiefs and however you feel about the Chiefs, whatever. Even though
go
I
get
think,
your Pfizer shot.
yeah, okay. I've already addressed that the whole refs favoring the Chiefs thing, in my opinion, is they never did and they haven't. Tommy's is different than mine, fine. But Tommy and I are in 100% agreement of we don't really care for Travis Kelsey, the individual. That does not reflect how we felt about him as a player. Clearly, Travis Kelsey was a dominant tight end for a very long period of time. Um, but we both felt like let's call it exhaustion with him also came on the football field because we felt like he was holding the Chiefs back. Like the Chiefs are obligated to Travis Kelsey, so they're keeping a very dissipated athletic dissipated athleticism that he has now. They kept him on the field and they're keeping him on the field longer. So, for example, if Travis Kelsey comes back this year again, they're going to be obligated to start him. They're going to be obligated to use him when like way more athletic, better guys are clearly available. So he's actively holding the team back. So when we keep saying we want him to retire, that's the primary reason that we want him to retire, not just, oh my God, I hate him. I want him to go away. We would never say that about any, you know, athlete that would otherwise be contributing, especially in a fantasy way, to a team. So
Yeah.
just wanted to clear that up. Notwithstanding, we could talk about the whole Pfizer situation some other time. Moving moving on from him. Yeah, I do think the Tyreek Hill, the best fit would be for Kansas City. Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy know how to use him best. So we'll see if that happens. And we are going to be talking about another guy or two today who I absolutely think the Bills should go after, Tommy. We'll make a note of that when we cover it. Any other news hit your desk? You want to jump right into this here?
No, I think that's it. I mean, all the coaching, big coaching news came out. Nothing,
Yep.
nothing crazy right now. It's uh post Super Bowl,
It's the lull. Yeah.
yeah, lull, and we're gonna make not so lull out of today.
Yeah, we're gonna get to we're gonna have an episode at some point when we get to the free agent craziness, which happens usually in like the beginning-ish of April or maybe kind of endish of March. We'll get back to you on the dates on that, but we'll get to you guys on that. All right, so let's jump into our final episode on wide receivers. We're covering wide receivers 25 to 36, and then some other notable mentions. And we wanted to reiterate the point of we covered this in the math when we talked about this a little bit last year. We're going so far into wide receivers because wide receivers that finish up to this point are still extremely, extremely relevant for your team. Even if you don't play in a start three wide receiver league, generally speaking, you're putting a wide receiver in that third slot because wide receivers hold their value better later. You'll notice when we get to more math, we'll discuss this more this year, that the running back 36 is not even close to the wide receiver 36, not just from a consistency standpoint, but also from a just overall performance standpoint. So we'll get into that. So no more ado. Finishing at wide receiver 25 is Debo Samuel. You drafted him as the as the wide receiver 38, so he returned value for it. But this is another guy, Tommy. It's kind of like a tale of two halves of the year, really. Leading into their week 12 bye, Debo was we talked about it, one of the best picks in fantasy, minus
Yep.
maybe a couple a little bit of inconsistency, but one of the best picks. And then it turned out to be absolutely nothing for the second half of the year, which we attribute that mostly to, Washington's ineptitude, right? Like
Yeah.
I guess
I
is
mean,
what it
there
was.
was the injuries and there was a lot of things that happened in Washington. They had the sophomore slump injury saga of Jaden Daniels over there. And I mean, the thing was, he came in hot and he did fantastic week 1, week 2, had a lull week 3 against Las Vegas when you thought he was going to have a high again. Week 4, week 5, big games. Week 6, then he had an injury, and then weeks 8, 2 lull games. And then okay game against Seattle, but you anticipated what happened with Seattle this year. You didn't anticipate like big games, but there was also injuries happening in that game. 10 and 11, solid weeks, and then it was over. So the first half of the season was nice. He was, he was
Very necessary.
overproducing. Yeah, he was overproducing. He was technically, let's just say, a low end or high end wide receiver two, putting up at times wide receiver one numbers. So it was really nice to have a player like that on your lineup. But then there was a point of time that you had to really see, especially with that injury, that happened to get, against Chicago going against Dallas. There could have been a turn of the tide, especially how that team was producing with the players that they had around him. That was somebody that you probably wanted to trade away with his production, knowing that there could be up and down games, but it was probably not going to be as good as it was early on.
No, it was not. And just judging by his age and just the situation that he's in, this might be his last really relevant year.
Uh,
Like a fall from grace. I mean, it's hard to see a situation where
I would
he's
like honestly, I honestly, and not to cut you off, but like
sure.
honestly, I would like to see him have at least one more year in that system with a healthy Terry McLaurin, with a healthy Jaden Daniels, and hopefully they get a running back there, outside of Chris Rodriguez, who's the only guy that actually could produce in that backfield.
Yeah. Well, maybe. He's going to be there at least next year. That's where his contract gets him through.
Hmm.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I wonder if I'll be so curious to see how high he go or how low he gets in ADP because there's always going to be a point where it's like, you know what? Here's a name. Like depending
Yeah.
on where in ADP you want to grab him. Um, so from guys who might have surprised to guys who disappointed, let's talk about wide receiver 26, Ladidi McConkey, aka
We're,
Lad McConkey.
well, we can technically talk about 26, 27,
Yes,
and 34. Parlay
yes.
that all together. Three
I
wide receivers on the same team, wide receiver threes.
Yeah, I apologize. I apologize about that. Segueing the proper way. So wide receiver 26, 27, and 34. So Ladidi, Quentin, and Keenan Allen. So Ladidi, you drafted him as the wide receiver 11. So extremely disappointing. Quentin was basically undrafted, so he came out of nowhere, but basically in the beginning of the year, second half of the year was absolutely nothing, really. Unless in the playoffs, I mean, unless you, but you would have taken, it would have taken some real wherewithal for you to actually make those decisions to start him in the playoffs after that week,
Yeah.
bunch of weeks leading into that. And Keenan Allen, okay, in the beginning part of the year, and then he became one of our biggest drop candidates. It was like every week we're like telling people just drop him, because Gadsden comes in and starts to really command the situation at that point.
Yeah.
So really the question is, how do we feel about Ladidi and Quentin? And um, my opinion about the situation is the Chargers need a better offensive line. Like that's the beginning, middle, and end
Well,
of this
no, I
situation
mean
here,
they have a really good offensive line. They just had a plethora of injuries early in the season. It just
which
didn't pan out right for them. So like
destroyed
they
them.
they just need to have a healthy offensive line. I mean, they got to where they got with what they had in a bad situation, and yeah, they lost very quickly in the playoff. But like they had a good really good offensive line to start the season. They just got to stay healthy. That's the biggest thing. I don't think they need to make any change to that offensive line. Just keep the health there. And obviously, I'm not anticipating Keenan Allen to come back next year, but I do think that it shows you what kind of volume can go to Gadsden. It shows you the kind of volume that will consistently be for Lad McConkey. I think Lad McConkey is going to be overlooked next year, and he's going to overproduce
Really,
based on the finish that he had this year.
really.
Hmm.
Okay.
You
It's a
know, when you got a potential MVP quarterback back there that almost won the MVP this year, right?
Yeah, almost.
Got votes, but
You gotta vote from somebody for ridiculous reasons. Ridiculous reasons. But
I'm just gonna say it's it's enticing to see three players on the same team in the same category with one of those guys going and not going to be on that roster next year. I can't say that Quentin Johnson is going to fall back in line. He's probably going to see the same amount of targets, same amount of opportunity. He's a boomer bust kind of player, kind of guy. I think it's going to be Lad McConkey consistent all year next year. He is their slot guy. He's basically going to catch some he's a possessional guy as well too. On top of that, Keenan Allen at times was their possessional guy this year. Ladd, the year prior in his rookie year, he was the positional guy. Keenan Allen, obviously, he had the chemistry with with him back with the quarterback back there. So I do think that Ladd retakes his role back as the possessional slash big threat, and it's going to be a miss if you don't take him next year.
well, depending on his ADP situation. Right now, his best ball has not been encouraging, but
No, I
we'll see how it
personally
shapes
think
up.
that he's going to fall within a third round ADP, and that's going to be a really sweet spot for somebody to take him.
You would feel comfortable with him as your wide receiver too,
I'd feel comfortable with my wide receiver one next
even
year
as your wide
going
receiver one.
running back, wide receiver next year.
Okay, you heard it. You heard it here first. And I think Quentin Johnston could be sneaky if he really falls too, personally. But we'll
Yeah, I
see.
mean, Quentin Johnson reminds me of Jordan
Here it comes.
Jordan Addison healthy and not getting in trouble.
Well, thankfully, we don't have to talk about him today. But let's talk about a different Minnesota receiver. So, like we said, 27 was Quentin Johnson, but 28 is Justin Jefferson. Oh my gosh, you drafted him as the wide receiver too. So Justin Jefferson, I think it's generally agreed is was basically the worst wide receiver pick because you had to keep playing him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you lost Malik Neighbors for the whole year, but you were putting other people in there. Justin Jefferson, you played. And especially for the second half of the year, just completely crushed you. So,
Yeah, he destroyed me in one league. I traded Trey McBride for him because I
man,
had a lot of opportunity in tight end.
I know, talk about a regret.
Yeah.
So the question here, Tommy, and this is like I spent some time to see what the internet community says about this. The internet community is pretty split on how they feel about nine as well
Nine.
as he says. So I don't know if we want to get into that debate now, but this is Justin Jefferson essentially being destroyed for the first time from incompetent quarterback play. He's been quarterback agnostic up until this point.
So
So what's
so
your take on this?
so I mean, here's the thing, right? So in through the season, through week 1 through 17, he was number 8 in targets, 130 targets. Those were horrible targets. He had 76 receptions. He is not that guy. If you look at his previous year, um, he had 154 targets, 103 receptions. So, a little bit more in the percentage of receptions with Sam Darnold, but 500 plus more reception yards and also 8 more touchdowns receiving. So, it really shows that the quarterback play is the problem there. And uh, you know, I think the ship has been written. I don't, and if honestly, if they decide to continue to roll
The book
with
has been
JJ
written.
McCarthy, sorry, the ship has sailed. The
Yeah.
book has been written, however you want to say it these days. Um, I think if Justin Jefferson has a big role in that not in just that offense, but that team and that organization. Um, if they don't do something he's going to want out and he will find a way out.
I believe that, but what is your confidence level that that won't happen with nine or
I
whoever else? I
well,
mean,
I think what's going to happen is they're going to hold him this year and he'll be on the same team. There's not going to be any moves or anything like that. Maybe they make a play for quarterback in the draft. But is that going to be better than 9? I don't think so.
I don't know. I think that Justin Jefferson is too talented for it not to get figured out in some way. I can tell you this. Here's a good question for you. After this performance, is Justin Jefferson still going to be drafted in the top 5 next year? No, there's no way. Top 10?
Top 10.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, he has to. It's just talent, you know. Yeah, it's the sheer talent that's there that he's
If
still going to be drafted in the top 10.
if they declare
There's
going into
going to
the
be
season,
people drafting him in the top 5.
if
It just his ADP is going to fall within the top 10 though.
if they declare after everything we've seen and after whatever goes on in the offseason, hey, starting week 1, JJ McCarthy, you're telling me Justin Jefferson is going to be in the top 10 ADP
Yeah, somebody's going to do it.
or
Somebody's
wide
going to
receiver?
think that 9 is going to produce.
I'd be terrified. I don't think I could let him fall below wide receiver 2.
You
It like,
cannot have
you
him
know,
as your wide receiver 1.
yeah. Not with him. We'll see how they address that. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll pay attention to that. Let's go to the next guy, wide receiver 29, Troy Franklin. I'm excited about this one. So
29.
29. So Troy Franklin, you drafted him as the wide receiver 78, whatever, undrafted. The point is that Troy Franklin at various points in the season was great. Like he was so good. I mean, starting in week 2, like he was such a relevant player for the team. He did have some little bits and pieces where he kind of fell off, but when he blew up, man, he really did blow up. And we talked about it when we talked in our first wide receiver episode. We believe a serious regression from Cortland Sutton partially because we believe in these ascension of these younger guys, Marvin Mims, uh, Troy Franklin, etc. So I am going to be on board the Troy Franklin train, and I think thankfully his overall performance didn't get so high that I think his ADP might be inflated. That having
Yeah.
been said, the internet community is fairly clever. We'll see where his ADP gets to, but I'm going to be all in on Troy Franklin, probably as a wide receiver 2 next year. I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, as I incited this a number of times, there is the Oregon connection there. I do think that his production is going to take an uptick. I do think that Sutton obviously he got the extension, I think, right? Last year. So, he's obviously going to be there, but I think that there's going to be a transition period. Um, and I think it's going to be a consistent thing. Kind of going to be like how, and we're going to talk about this guy next, the DJ Moore slash Oduze scenario, right? Oduze came out, he was overproducing. It's surprising that DJ Morris finished where he finished, with the limited amount of receptions he had, which we'll talk about next. Um, the thing is, I think Troy Franklin will have that consistency throughout the entire season because he's proven to be a really, really good threat for that team.
Yeah, and he's super athletic. Here's the issue that I have with the situation. Notwithstanding the fact that they got a few guys there, let's put Sutton aside. Marvin Mims and Pat Bryant. If you go look again, I don't want to use it as the swath of just to paintbrush everybody, but the online internet fantasy football community are obsessed with Pat Bryant. They are obsessed with him. They will. It's the same way that they were obsessed with Marshawn Lloyd. Like
Mhm.
like this is going to be the guy. He's the guy that they picked. He's the guy that they want to go with. And then at some point, you just go with what your eyes say. You go with what you see. Troy Franklin was by far the best receiver other than Sutton in Denver by
Yeah.
far. And I thought he ascended. I thought he basically ascended past it. The same way that I felt um about Parker Washington in Jacksonville. We'll talk more about that at some point today. But like sometimes you just follow with what your eyes see. So I have high hopes for Troy Franklin for next year. Speaking of somebody that you segued into, so let's talk about number 30, DJ Moore. Um, you drafted him as the wide receiver 22, so this wasn't so good. And talking about the inconsistency, man, it was really awful. That having been said, I just saw it like one of the best playoff receivers.
Yeah.
21 points and 19 points in weeks in your semifinals and your final or your quarterfinals and your semifinals there. So very good by that. But I mean, he had a 0. He had a game where he had negative points. I mean, he was just underperforming the whole year. I mean, it was bad. And we had him on our team in multiple places, so
Yeah.
like it was bad.
This was his worst year, outside of his first year as a rookie in Carolina in 2018. It nearly matches his production. He had 85 targets, I'm going to talk about in total right here
Sure.
based on what shows here. 85 targets, 50 receptions. 682 yards, 6 touchdowns in the 2025 year. 2018, he had 82 receptions, 82 targets, 55 receptions, 788 yards, and 2 touchdowns in Carolina. This is his worst year on the Chicago Bears. Year prior, he finished wide receiver 16. Year prior to that, he finished wide receiver 6. So there's a lot of talent on that offense. But he is by far the most talented player on that offense.
I don't know if I agree with that. Maybe not
Uh,
now. I
and you
mean,
know what? Honestly, and you know what? He's proven that he is a massive asset to that team and needs to be utilized. And if they don't use him, he's got to go. He's got to go somewhere else because if he has back-to-back years of what he finished this year and he does it again next year, it's going to ruin his legacy in fantasy, not in fantasy, in just the NFL total. Because people remember the most recent years. They don't go back sometimes to those great years. You got to remember what happened. And he's still in his prime, I think. He's not out of it. He's, yeah,
would this be
he
year 8 or 9 that he's going into then?
he's going to
I
be
mean,
29 this year coming up. So he's not Debo Samuel age, and he's also not the kind of player like Debo Samuel is. He's a wide receiver. He's not a dual threat guy, right? He's not taking those big, massive hits up the gut by those 350-pound linemen. So I think DJ Moore, if they're going to use him right, he has a really good opportunity to overproduce his potential next year.
well, you said a lot of things there, some of which I agree with. Let's just break it down. First of all, just for to give everybody context, if you just go and look at DJ Moore, we won't read everything, but if you just go and look at it, maybe the most inconsistent wide receiver in football, maybe the most inconsistent. And to me, if you take it as he has not dissipated athletically at all, which I agree with Tommy, I agree with you, then it is a function of what's going on with the team. And I cannot see anything but more of the same for next year. Let's just count the ways. He's not going anywhere because of the contract. He's staying right there. Roman Dunze's not going anywhere. Luther Burton's definitely not going anywhere. Colson Loveland's definitely not going anywhere. The only one who might be Cole Kmet, but even he wants to stay, and the fans are telling him to stay or whatever. You got a lot of mouths to feed of a lot of talented guys and guys in which that they have, you know, investment capital in. They have draft capital in. So like guys that they want to use, etc. Another year older on a team where it's debatable whether he's the primary thing. I don't know. It's a difficult sell on top of the fact that we saw what he looked like in that system. One of the most inconsistent wide receivers in football with the absolute lowest of lows. I mean, we were pulling our hair out for most of the season. I think this is a hard sell. I'll ask you this. I think that the fantasy community was significantly burned by this. There is a point at which he could fall, which I know you and I would both be gung ho about taking him. Where do you think that point would fall on ADP that you'd be okay with that?
But
I wouldn't feel
DJ,
comfortable with him as a wide receiver too.
he'd have to be, I think he'll potentially be a sixth, seventh round guy next year, which I'd feel really good about taking him at ADP there. I do think
It
that
was
there's
four or
gonna,
five this past year.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think he's gonna take a slight setback. Because there are some players that are below him, like, and we'll talk about those dishonorable and injury, mentions, stuff like that. Those guys are going to, be ahead of him still in ADP. So I think that's going to push him back slightly because there's been overperformers that are going to basically be, drafted ADP higher than him as well, too. So I think 6, 7 is the sweet spot next year. And I think that is going to be a really, really nice spot to take him, and he'll be your wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 potentially.
Yeah, there's always upside. You don't have to throw him in as much. I outlined the reasons. We'll see how trepidatious we get. It's again, we have to see if they do anything. But if it's the exact same, loaded offense team with all these weapons, then we'll
Hmm.
we'll we'll assess at that point. Let's talk about number 31, and let's also talk about number 72. We'll talk about them in the same breath. So finishing at number 31 is Juwan Jennings. You draft him as the wide receiver 44. So just on that metric, he returned value, but that's not the story. Basically, from weeks 9 on, one of the best and most consistent wide receivers in football. Absolutely one of the best. You could chalk that up to, Purdy coming back, whatever else was not going on with their wide receiver situation, Kittle going down. I mean, Juwan Jennings was, and him coming back from the 78 injuries that he had or whatever it was, and the fall of the next guy that we brought up here. So wide receiver 72, Ricky Pearsall. Um, the opposite of what happened with Jennings. Pearsall, you drafted him as the wide receiver 35 and did not return much of the value. So if Pearsall never gets hurt, Tommy, do you think Pearsall has the kind of season that Jennings did for the second half of the year, for the whole year, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was also playing injured all through season. I mean, Jennings really produced because of what I said it early in the year, and what I said it in the offseason of last year, and what I said in draft season. Some of these players got to play for contingent. Like they have to have like specific stats be a
He's
part
your
of their.
poster child for this argument of
Yes,
yours. Yeah.
he is. And you know what? The 49ers are not going to pay him. They're not going to pay him because you know why? They don't want to be Ayuked.
Ayuked again? Yeah.
They don't want to be Ayuked again. Now, I don't think that is that's a scenario there, but I just don't see them paying it because they have talent in that wide receiver room. Brandon Ayuk should be coming back, but again, I think they maybe trade him for something in return. But you got Pearsall, you got Kittle, you got options out there. So I just think that Jennings is going to be gone, signing with another team, and that's just it. But he had a fantastic year. Somebody's going to pay him. But I don't think it's going to be the same kind of scenario, depending on situation that he had this year. I think he's going to take a little bit of a step back, no matter what the circumstances early on. And I do believe that Ricky Pearsall, if he didn't get as injured as he was and playing through injuries, he's had so many setbacks since he started his career
Like
with getting
gunshots.
gunshots, ankles, knees, everything. This guy is going to come in next year with the opportunity to be very successful, and I think that offense is going to tailor to him.
I agree with you. I agree. Everything you said. I can't see them investing into Jennings that way. And also, it's actually hard for me to see Kittle coming back and even be close to what he was also at this point in his career too.
Yeah,
So yeah, Ricky Pearsall could be real sneaky next year. We'll be excited about him.
sneaky, sneaky.
All right, let's talk about the next guy. We'll talk about three guys at once. This one I'm excited about. So finishing at number 32 is Parker Washington. Finishing at number 36 is Jacoby Myers, the law firm. And finishing at number 44 is Brian Thomas Jr. We're talking about them all for very different reasons. All right. Parker Washington, undrafted, whatever. Jacoby Myers, number 36, drafted as the wide receiver 41. Okay. Turn value, but that's not the whole story. And Brian Thomas finishing as the wide receiver 44. You draft him as the wide receiver 8. I would say, other than him and maybe CD, definitely the most disappointing wide receiver chosen in the draft. All right. So I'll get through Parker Washington. I have a disagreement with Tommy just about funniness about talent in Jacksonville. And I think Parker Washington is the most talented wide receiver in Jacksonville. He doesn't, but that's okay. Um, Parker Washington at the points in which they needed him last year was absolutely great. That much cannot be denied. Was he consistent? No. Was he the quote lead guy? No. But when they needed him, he was absolutely great. Blow up games, reliable. He looked really good. Nobody could take that away from him. Jacoby Myers, though, and I'll let Tommy just go ahead and enjoy this. So after Jacoby Myers got traded to Jacksonville, um, was extremely good for the second half of the year. So,
Mhm.
what made you see that one coming? Was it just a product of necessity, or did you just believe in Myers' talent?
I mean, I've always believed in Myers' talent. Go back to New England. Yeah, he had seasons where he didn't score a touchdown, but he was getting targets, he was getting his receptions, he was getting his yards. He was not the touchdown guy. Then he goes over last year to the Raiders, and he has a good season, and he makes do with what he got. He has a decent season. He makes do with what he got. go to this year, he gets traded. Obviously, there's a lot of issues in the Raider Nation over there, like there always is. And he goes to Jacksonville. He goes into a system where he is a leader on that wide receiver room right off the bat. He comes in there. He's a fantastic route runner. He's a massive asset to that organization, that team. And
From
he
week 11 on, man. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, he had three very, very good games, but the other games they were okay.
Serviceable.
Yeah, they were serviceable, but they were for what you got him for. You weren't
Right.
he wasn't a championship league winning wide receiver this year because he came onto a roster mid-season. Going into next year, that's going to be overlooked. And I do think that he will be, like I said, he will be a top 12 wide receiver finishing.
That is, and you've been calling that out. It's a
It's a,
very, very bold
it's
statement.
very bold, but it showed his talent shows that he can do this. And especially if Liam Cohen is going to throw the ball and have, and not only that, but Trevor Lawrence can be consistent throwing the ball and be as diverse as he was. This is going to be a big year for Jacoby Myers.
I don't think that Jacoby Myers can have that kind of a year unless the next guy, Brian Thomas here, is traded. That's what I was alluding to earlier. Like
Well,
Brian Thomas, I think it's a no-brainer needs to go to the
I
Bills.
don't think that's going to happen. I think Brian Thomas stays. There's been a lot of speculation that Travis Hunter is going to just be a primary cornerback moving forward.
Sure.
There has just been too much back and forth. They need to keep him isolated on one side of the field. Maybe they throw him out there as a, big play opportunity here and there, like they do sometimes with the, like wide receivers playing free safety when they need to get the ball or something like that, whatever it is. But I think that Brian Thomas is going to still remain as a Jacksonville Jaguar, even though I did say a couple times that I do believe that he should be traded. He should have been traded before the trade deadline, but I think that he'll be there. They'll all be there next year. And Tucker, sorry, in which one call it? I just said his name. Travis Hunter will play defense, and that three core right there with Doctor Strange would be a nice, nice setup in that wide receiver room.
Well, we hope that he's traded. Just breaking down Brian Thomas a little bit.
I don't
So,
hope he's traded.
well, partial part of the reason why he did finish this low is he did have that mid-season injury. He was gone for a little while, but he was nowhere near performing what he did. Now the narrative is that, well, most of what Brian Thomas did last year was Mac Jones, bombing him the ball every play, for the second half of the year, whatever, which may or may not be true. I don't know if that's the case, but I know that Trevor Lawrence is a better quarterback than Mac Jones. And I know that Brian Thomas was a high draft capital receiver. He was supposed to be good. Like it's a weird
Well,
thing for
there,
us to
there's a
give him a pass for the
well,
Mac
yeah,
Jones
I
thing.
feel no, but I feel like you have to give him a pass because also the year prior their defense was just garbage. So a lot of it like was Mac Jones just slinging the ball. He showed it this year again, having a garbage defense in the as the 49ers through the entire season, just playing shootouts, like he could throw the ball and he can make things happen. So it was a product of that. And they just didn't have the same system in place that they now have a little bit more structure on that offense.
I suppose it's a
He's
weird.
not going to, Brian Thomas is not going to finish again on this offense ever again in the top 10. He will never finish in the top 10 ever again.
Right, but okay, is he going to finish at wide receiver 44 if he stays on this team? That's
I,
unlikely to me.
no, no, he'll finish higher than that, more likely. He'll finish as a wide receiver, low end wide receiver two, high end wide receiver three. It's not great, but you're going to draft him at a decent decent position next year, based on what he did, based on injuries, system. I think Parker Washington is the one that takes a step back.
You watch your mouth. Here's what I think. If they do go into the season and they've got all these guys, let's not even count Travis Hunter. Let's assume Travis Hunter does play more defense. If they go into the season with all three guys, you know what's going to happen from an ADP. Brian Thompson is going to have the highest ADP. Jacoby Myers is going to be a round or two after him. and Parker Washington might be an afterthought later. For that reason, I think I might be agreeing with you from a value perspective. I'll take that. I'll take that late shot on Jacoby Myers. I don't know if he's going to finish in the top 12, but I'll take that shot on Jacoby Myers. I don't know how high Brian Thomas could possibly get to from an ADP. I mean, everybody and their
Uh,
mother was burned by him, but
We're gonna fast forward to our live draft conversation next year. You know, this upcoming year when we're doing our live draft and we're drafting Jacoby Myers, and I'm like, bro, let's take him. It's the seventh round. We have to take him. He's gonna finish in the top 12. No, man, there is this one player. We gotta take our quarterback here. No, no, no. This
no,
guy's gonna finish in the top 12. We don't need to take Bo Nix here.
you will. Yeah, me arguing with you in the tenth round for a guy who never played in Joe Mixon. I think
Hey,
that's a little
some
bit
leagues he's
different.
a nice keeper. Not in that league.
Speaking of which, just while it's on my mind, we'll talk more about this in the off season. But I have moved so far into just completely hunting the onesie positions. We'll get to the math of that as we get
Good. I'm
farther into
glad.
the
So there's
season.
no more argument. You got that on record, guys.
Yeah, the 10th round is considered. Hey, that's a good punt. That's fine. So
Let's
we'll
go
get.
to 11th.
All right, we'll see when we get to that. But you're not gonna hear me fighting with you on Jacoby Myers. Well, you're gonna hear me fighting with you if you're gonna be like reaching on him in the fifth or something, depending on where he's at.
Let me
But
tell you, Calvin Ridley. Calvin.
yeah, we'll cross that bridge. But anyway, I'll say this: Jacksonville, like the Chargers, for example, like I like the fact that they've got all these weapons and Chicago. I like the fact that they've got all the weapons for their quarterback. It'll make me feel good about going their quarterback as a late round shot.
Yep.
Let's talk about the next guy. Number 33 is Romeo Dobbs.
Wide receiver one for your Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, by far finishing the highest among all the Green Bay wide receivers, partially because the others were dealing with injuries, in and outs, inconsistencies, whatever. So Dobbs, you drafted him as the wide receiver 72, whatever, undrafted. So again, we had a whole conversation this year. This year was the Russian roulette. It was the wheel of fortune of Green Bay wide receivers. We could just go down the list. Dobbs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Christian Watson, Matt Golden. I mean, like, I don't know of any of them. And Tommy, what's your favorite Josh Jacobs quote about any of these guys?
No wide receiver one. We got
You know,
Romeo Dobbs though.
you got Romeo Dobbs, who did not finish as a wide receiver one. The problem is, I don't think any of these guys are good enough to just dominate an offense.
No.
All the wide receivers that they have, who do you think will have the highest ADP next year? Watson, maybe. I mean,
It's probably going to be Jaden Reed again.
you think Jaden Reed will have the highest ADP?
Yeah,
Maybe.
it's going to be Jaden Reed.
It's just a wheel of fortune. Golden has to perform better than what he did.
Fantasy football world. Let me explain this to you. If the Green Bay Packers do not pick up a wide receiver one this year, just stay away from all of them. Stay away. Don't touch any of these guys. Let them surpass. You're never going to play these guys. Never. Just
Well,
go get better options out there.
well, Tommy, take a look at Dobbs. I would say up until week 9, he was extremely good, pretty consistent. He had definitely had a few blow up games, but what happened around week 9? You started to get Watson back, and then like you started to get other guys back, and then at that point, it's just throw the dice in the canister, see what happens. So we'll see what they do with it. I was hoping maybe one of these guys gets traded, and then you have a little bit of clarity. I don't know.
No. I
We'll see
mean, the guy had
see
a
what they
three
do.
touchdown game against Dallas. If he had one touchdown, he takes him outside the top 36.
Yeah, so that's Romeo Dobbs. Number 34 we talked about. That was Keenan Allen. Let's talk about number 35, Alec Pierce, one of our darlings from this year. So Alec Pierce, finishing at 35. You draft him as the wide receiver 76, whatever, undrafted. So we got to a point last year where especially when the Colts were just dominating everybody, where we were like, Alec Pierce is not even, he's like 1 and 1A with Pittman. That's how good he was. And if you go and look at his scores, like minus the little stretch of games that he had in there where he didn't play, he was extremely good and fairly consistent. I mean, week 7, 12 points, week 8, 8 points, week 9, 14 points, week 10, 16 points. I mean, and even after their bye, 3 points, 15, 10, 2, 22. Such a good player, very reliable. And I think that they need to figure out their quarterback situation. I mean, we got to see how Daniel Jones is going to feel. If Daniel Jones is back and he's the starter week one, are you all in on Alec Pierce?
100%.
100%. Okay.
There's no other question. There's nothing to say about that.
All right.
100%.
Well, I don't think his ADP is going to be that steep, so we'll probably
No.
be excited about
I
him.
believe that he may be a very, 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 very late round player. You may be able to grab him in the 12th, 13th, 14th round, or maybe undrafted.
Maybe. We'll hope so, especially if it's, weird about leading into the
Hmm.
leading into the season. So there we go. We covered 25 to 36. We kind of threw in some other guys there. So let's get to some of the other notable guys we wanted to talk about. So we talked about number 44, that was Brian Thomas. Let's just talk about number 45, Marvin Harrison.
Well, before we get to
Oh,
that,
sure.
we got to talk about number 41, Rashee Rice.
Oh, okay. I apologize. We'll switch gears. Rashee Rice, number 41. So
Rashee Rice obviously came in. He missed the first 6 games of the season. Then he was a world beater. He averaged what was it? 15.5 points per game.
yeah.
So that puts him in the top 5.
Yeah, up until Mahomes got hurt. And I I don't know how I want to say this. I think Rashee Rice is overrated, personally. I don't know about a fantasy perspective, but I think a real life NFL perspective, he's a bit overrated.
Well,
Like he's the
if
best Mahomes has to work with.
yeah, I
Like,
mean if Tyreek Hill comes back, it's Rice and
right,
Hill, and that's it.
right. No, you're right. You're right about that. Do you think that um first of all, I think Mahomes is going to be ready week one. Like I think the offense gets significantly better with Eric Bieniemy. I mean, we talked about this with the whole Nagy situation. We have a slight disagreement on what Nagy did or didn't do, but I think the offense gets better under Bieniemy. I think it's just based on what kind of personnel the Chiefs have. Like they need better people. It's Mahomes and nobody else, basically.
I'm serious. Tyreek Hill going to Miami, he could get in a lot of trouble in that hot state over there, especially down in Miami. There's a lot of things to happen out there. In Kansas City, it's nice 4 to 5 months out of the year. That's about it. It gets cold. So it keeps you inside, keeps you contained, and keeps him to play Fortnite a lot more.
Yeah, we'll see. And then Kyler could play Call of Duty, and then they could do a podcast together.
Yeah, but you know what? At least Tyreek Hill can produce playing a video game and also playing on the field.
Yes. So we'll see. We'll see if Tyreek comes back to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's jump to 45. Mentioned quickly before. So Marvin Harrison finishes as the wide receiver 45. You drafted him as the wide receiver 16. Man, man, he was disappointing. He had the whole injury situation towards the second half of the year. Yeah, that didn't help, but it's not like he was that overwhelming in the first half of the year. I mean, he had some decent enough games, but not from where you drafted him. You expected him to be, a real anchor, a good portion, a good part of your team. I mean, he was going in like the second, like maybe the third round, and the
Yeah.
best you were getting out of him was what he was. I mean, not good.
The problem was it was
Kyler,
Kyler. Yeah, it was Kyler.
I think it
And
was both of them.
when Kyler, well, here's the thing. When Kyler was getting phased out, that's when his injuries started picking up. I mean, his snap percentages dropped. Like when he played against Indianapolis, that was week 6. He had 4.2 points, but he had 23% snap percentage, 2 for 2 targets, 32 yards. I mean, so like if he played more that game, there could have been a little bit more of an uplift, I think, based on the sheer volume percentage that he had there. The games that he got injured, he had some pretty solid games. But the injury really took play, and that's what gave him the setback. And then on top of that, you have Kyler's dilemma, and then the ascendance of Mike whatever his name is. I don't remember him anymore.
Michael Wilson.
Michael Wilson, who is not going to be finishing where he finished this year. ever again.
No, but you and I might have a disagreement about him going into next year. We talked about it a little bit. I mean, we might see this a little differently. I think Marvin Harrison deserves, like, we don't just get to poo-poo and say everything was on Kyler. Marvin Harrison deserves some blame. I don't think his route running was where it needed to be. I don't think he was as good as it needed to be. I mean, Marvin Harrison had Jacoby Myers for the same amount of games that Michael Wilson did, minus, the injury stuff. So I don't know. I think that there's some blame to go around. Marvin Harrison will be more higher drafted next year than Michael Wilson, and maybe that makes Michael Wilson a value. But again, maybe it depends on how far Marvin Harrison drops to. So the coach now of the Cardinals is LaFleur, and thankfully he's an offensive coach who we could get behind. Um, so maybe there's some upticks there. It'll be real interesting to see what they
LaFleur?
do. Yeah, it's LaFleur's little brother. So it's Matt LaFleur and Mike LaFleur. I can't remember which is which.
Eh,
So
okay.
that's Marvin Harrison. Let's talk about Xavier Worthy. So I know you mentioned the Rashee Rice thing. I just wanted to give 2 seconds of lip service to this. So what Xavier Worthy finishes as the wide receiver 56. You drafted him as the wide receiver 24. So that wasn't good. Anybody who had him knows he was not good all season. And I just want to say this one thing about this. We talked about this, and you and I are in pretty lockstep about this. And I want to compare him to Puka Nacua. Okay.
Ugh.
Xavier Worthy is, at least from a 40-yard dash perspective, the fastest guy in the NFL. Okay. You put him on the field with a helmet and shoulder pads. He cannot hold a candle to Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua partially got drafted as low as he did when he got into the draft, partially because he didn't have a good combine. So what? Puka goes out and dominates every single player that he plays against.
I
The
mean,
NF,
week one, week one, Xavier Worthy ran into Travis Kelce and just ran into him and dislocated his shoulder. He was
I
out for
know,
3 weeks.
I know, and we called it out. Those of us who are in the know about football, that was Xavier Worthy's fault. He's ran like the wrong kind of way. That's not how you run a pick route. And
He
this
must have been
is
out. He must have been out in Brazil somewhere the night
ugh.
before, like getting some crazy.
But this is sort of the point that we're making. Like the NFL, a lot of these teams, like, and Kansas City is, they've got a good GM, but he's not the best. Like they're too focused on, oh my God, what were his combine numbers? Oh my God, it's Patrick Mahomes. We just got to get a guy with speed. Not everybody is Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill knows how to run routes. Get yourself a Puka. Get yourself a guy who knows how to run routes. Anyway, diatribe aside, Xavier Worthy was bad, and I feel bad because I was predicting him to like turn it around and do a Tyreek Hill thing, and he never did. He never learned how to run routes right. All he knows how to do is run a 40-yard dash, and he can't even do it on the field. He's not outrunning guys on the field. So he was bad, and I'm going to completely out on Xavier Worthy. I'm done with him going forward. We had him as a drop candidate for what, like 9, 10, 11 weeks last year, Tommy. So we could
We had him a draft candidate after week one.
basically after week one. Yeah, you're right. Because then where she Rice was coming back, it's like, why do we still have him on the team? It was
You
just
know,
like, let's talk about number 57. I purposely didn't want to talk about him when we talked about Debo. I wanted to give him his standalone shot here. So number 57 is Terry McLaurin, and you drafted him as the wide receiver 17. So this is another guy who killed you. And, you know, injury notwithstanding, he didn't perform commensurate with a mid-range wide receiver two. So do you think this is the end of Terry McLaurin himself too? Or
no, it
you're
can't
you
be. It can't be. They're going to find ways to make him relevant. They just paid the guy. He came into the season not being at football speed. We spoke about that early on. It's not a player that you want to draft. Maybe somebody that you want to kind of like look for late in the season as the season goes on, but didn't play out well for him this year because of the injuries. That's what happens, obviously, when you hold out that long. You just show up and you start playing.
yeah.
It's just consistency, right? It's consistent that happens. On top of that, Jaden Daniels was out. You got Marcus Mariota throwing the ball, or running the ball more than throwing the ball. It just was not a good positive situation for the wide receiver room there outside of Zach Ertz and sometimes Deebo Samuel. I mean, Terry McLaurin had some two, three, he had two bomb games, one okay game. And outside of that, they were all busts. But it just didn't make any sense. I think going into next year, it's going to be a little bit different. I think Washington takes a step up. Um, and I think that he'll be underdrafted next year, but overproduce. And I know I said that a couple times. I've been saying that a couple times. But I truly believe that Terry McLaurin's value with that offense is now that he's paid, now that he's secured. I think this is not a Kenny Galladay situation. The guy wants to play. The guy wants to make sure this team makes it to the next level. And you got a really, really mature young quarterback back there that wants the same. So I just think the organization needs to put the better pieces offensively together on the offensive line and also the running back room. And this team could really just find a way to make it happen.
In your commentary, on these wide receiver episodes, and even today when we talked about Debo and about the running backs, whatever. So you're excited, I guess, as compared with consensus with Washington in general. You're feeling fairly optimistic, I guess, with the overall pessimism as compared to the pessimism with Washington then. So you're
Yeah,
feeling decently enough for them next year. Okay. I mean, maybe they can overperform. Maybe that's a place where we get some value in the draft.
I
So
think honestly the NFC East is going to be the toughest division in football next year.
you might be right. You might absolutely be right. We'll talk about another NFC East guy in just a moment here. Let's talk about number 60, Garrett Wilson. Ugh, I don't know how to talk about this without hating my team. So if Garrett Wilson finishes as the wide receiver 60, you draft him as the wide receiver 18. I'll say this for the games that he played, I would say he returned value on where you drafted him at. I mean, his average was 11.6. He was good in the games that he got it because he was the only guy who could get open and, catch whatever garbage targets were thrown at him. So,
Can you make sure that I'm right about this? But I do believe that from week 6, he was and the rest of the season. So you put all the receptions together, he was the leading receiver for that offense last year.
oh my gosh, I would not be surprised. Do you think Adonai Mitchell broke that?
No,
Uh, did Brees Hall over catch him in passes? I wouldn't be surprised. He probably was.
talking
I
about
mean,
wide receiver. I think Brees Hall may have, but wide receiver wise, especially being out after week 6, he was, I believe, he was the leading wide receiver on that offense.
it definitely wasn't more than Mason tackled. So no, it wasn't him. So you're probably right. The entire and here's the deal with Garrett Wilson. Unlike Brees Hall, there's not a question of him leaving. They have locked him up, lock and key forever. Poor Garrett Wilson is stuck on this team for the rest of his future.
Adonai Mitchell had 33 receptions. That's even on Indianapolis.
Oh my gosh. So the entire question of Garrett Wilson becomes not just playing on this awful team, but what awful, awful, awful targets is he going to get? And I think he's another guy that you could just count on him to get targets and perform even in the worst case at mid-range wide receiver 2. And if it's Justin Fields again, will be right around the same. That's why I'm at least hoping for Kirk Cousins because I think Kirk Cousins could get him up to a wide receiver 1.
Do you
But
know that Garrett Wilson had more touchdowns than Adonai Mitchell as well too?
there's an endless supply of fun with him with the Jets. Let's just leave it there. We'll wait to assess him to see what quarterback, but just so everybody knows, the Jets are awful.
Garrett
Anyway,
Wilson is a very good wide receiver, though. I
yes.
think he finished with what he played. He had 11.6 fantasy points per
Yes.
game, so he was a very very useful asset. And let's just say 59 targets, 36 receptions, 395 yards, 4 touchdowns. That in 6 games, you finish a whole season. That's top 12,
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. I hope that like
even with really bad quarterback play.
I don't think Justin Fields could get him into the top 12. I do think Kirk can. Um, we'll see. Let's talk about number 76, Mike Evans. And I don't have them on the list, but let's just quickly talk about all the Bucks receivers. So and we talked about Ibuka already. So Evans, finishes as the wide receiver 76. You drafted him as the wide receiver 15. So again, among the most disappointing guys. We know what happened. He was doing okay in the beginning part of the year. Then he gets injured. Then he's out the whole year. And then he comes back basically right for your playoffs and does good. So I don't know if he necessarily would have returned value for you. It would have been fine, but Mike Evans is only going to get worse from here, even if he were to change teams. They got a lot of weapons on that team. They got a lot of good wide receivers. Ibuka, Evans, Godwin, McMillian, Tez Johnson,
Yeah.
etc. I mean, and you're of all of them, you love Godwin the most. So
Yeah, I mean, I do think Ibuka, takes a step up and has more of a consistency next year because I do believe Mike Evans does not get re-signed there.
really, okay.
Mhm.
I you're probably right. I mean, it's not commensurate with
It's a nice
where,
quote. You say it a lot.
but you might be right.
No, you're
Yeah,
probably right.
well, you're probably right. But if I agree with you, or if I think it's a good possibility, I openly tell you if I disagree with you. But that one you're probably right about.
Thank you.
Let's start with the next guy. This one's going to be painful for you. Finishing at wide receiver 97 is Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, come on. It's the injury. Come on.
You draft him as wide receiver 5. So I guess on a numbers thing, he was the worst. But again, he had the injury the whole year, so you could have tried to piece it together. Here's what I'm most concerned about, Tommy. I don't know. Did he actually get a chance to play with Jackson Dart? Was it for like one game before he got hurt or something?
Jackson Dart played it was in LA. It was LA Chargers. That's when he got hurt.
All
So
right. So
he,
you didn't
he
even.
played the game that he got hurt. He had two receptions, 20 yards. And it was early in the game. So
So would you see Malik Neighbors now? He'll be back. Let's assume he's healthy and he doesn't have a pimp cane or whatever else that he was walking around with. Do you see him as a top 12 wide receiver, assuming he's healthy with Jackson Dart?
I see him finishing probably in the top 8 next year with the health they both have healthy seasons and also a good system with Scadaboo coming back. I think that he will be a top 8 wide receiver.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I would have thought you're usually pretty conservative with the Giants players.
I am, but you got to talk logic. You got to see what he did. And honestly, you play the NFC East teams twice a year, and there's a lot of good opportunity there.
I would have thought for sure you would have been like, I'm not sure if I could count on him finishing top 12. Not, you
Nah,
know,
he's gonna be a top 8. I think he actually probably finishes 8 or 9 next year.
Interesting. Well, that looks like where he's going in ADP right now. So we'll see if that holds.
Hmm.
Um, and last, I mean, we kind of mentioned it at the top in the news. So finishing at wide receiver 107 is Tyreek Hill. You draft him as wide receiver 12. So that wasn't good either. But that's also because he got injured. He was performing pretty well. I don't know if as well
Decent.
with as well for a wide receiver one, even a low end. Had a couple decent games in there, but the problem therein was Tua. It just was Tua regressed like 9,000 degrees this year. It just was bad. And Tyreek Hill got injured, and that was the end of it.
It's 50 Shades of Tua.
So this coming year with him, like we said, it all depends on what team does he go to and does he still have it. I think even a 90% Tyreek Hill is still an unbelievably good receiver.
I
And
think a
so
70% Tyreek Hill is a very good receiver
you you might be right. We'll
in a
see.
good situation.
In a
Kansas
good situation.
City.
Kansas City would be the 100% best situation. If
I
not
will,
them,
and I will say,
Buffalo.
if he, no, no, I think he goes, to Kansas City. There's no way, there's no reason for him to go anywhere else unless he did something entirely wrong with the organization where they just won't take him back. Eric Bieniemy is there. They have an open spot for him. Xavier Worthy, as we discussed, is not the guy. Travis Kelce's on the way out. You got Rashee Rice there. Tyreek Hill, Rashee Rice. That's gonna be a nice 1-2 punch. And then, obviously Travis Kelce will probably come back for a season and just his name will just be there.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's about it. I mean, again, Travis Kelce did finish decent this year, but
Yeah, because he's getting forced targets. That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
He's taking away from the rest of the team. And if Kelsey were to come back,
Noah Gray was
I,
gone this entire year.
I know. If Kelsey comes back, you know that therefore Brett Veach is not going to try to make a play to go get Isaiah Likely, which Isaiah Likely would be an awesome option for them. But
Yeah.
we could speculation aside. Yeah, we do hope Tyreek Hill goes to Kansas City. If not, we'll assess when we see where he goes. All right, so you made a bold prediction, and you said it too on the last couple of shows that you think Jacoby Myers has the potential to finish in the top 12, and you think that's regardless of if Brian Thomas were to get traded or not.
That is correct.
Okay, okay, you heard it here first. Does that Now that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to rank him in the top 12. You just think he can, and it's a good,
No,
like
no,
you're
no, I
feeling
will
good
not.
about
I
it.
will not rank him in the top 12. I will not take him that early. His ADP is going to fall to his ADP, but I think that he will be a massive, massive value where he's being drafted, and he will finish in the top 12 next year,
Okay, so this is your
barring
preliminary big value.
barring any injuries.
Okay, so this is your preliminary big value is
Correct.
Jacoby Myers for this year. Anybody else jump out at you who you think could show up as a big value?
Um, you know, I think Garrett Wilson's going to be overlooked next year based on the situation. So he's going to be a fantastic value based on what he produces when he plays.
You might be right. Um, you might be 100% right. It's just such a bad team. Of the names that we discussed, and I think we're all in perfect agreement. I'll probably count Jacoby Myers as a value also. I might not be as crazy as you are. I think Alec Pierce is going to be a good value. I can see Troy Franklin um turning out to be something special. And you know, you could throw in names that we haven't mentioned, like way farther down the list that really didn't get their shot this year that, we didn't overly make into a thing. But we got to see from a lot of these, what you want to see in general from receivers that you're going to get behind is you want to see the right situation with the right quarterback. But if you don't have that, then at the very least, you want to at least have one of them because a lot of these guys who are names that we could point out aren't in a good situation and they don't have a good quarterback. Yeah, that's like not the it's like not the area that you want to be in. So some of these other guys do have that case. So there we go. That is our full swath of wide receivers. We covered a lot of guys, and we'll be getting on with tight ends and quarterbacks a little bit later on the offseason, but we will have our next controversial topics episode next week. And Tommy, are you excited for next week's discussion?
Yeah, I am very excited.
Okay, we're going to get into the belly of the beast, and just as a reiteration, we're going to be talking about Shador Sanders and tribalism in sports, and I am very excited. And we're not going to hold back. So
Maybe a
get your
little bit.
get your
We
popcorn
don't
because
want to get canceled.
we're not going to get canceled if we speak earnestly about, things, we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there.
Okay.
We'll save the canceling for next week. So there we go. Closing thoughts, Mr. Lang?
Yeah, we truly appreciate everybody that takes the time to tune in. So if you could please like, share, and subscribe, we really appreciate it.
We do appreciate it. Thank you very much, everybody.